Welcome to NocBro Nation.
Welcome back, guys.
Today, as you can see, we're here to review issue 182 of The Walking Dead.
The Commonwealth grows.
Was I right on the number?
Yeah. Which they should have titled this the Commonwealth Tour.
Yeah,
basically.
It was a little throwing us off, right?
The cover was an absolute throw-off.
Yeah.
No secret meeting with Pamela and John. No.
And as you can see, I'm holding the variant by Bill Sienkiewicz.
I
got that right.
That's
huh?
right, yeah. Maggie. Not a bad cover.
Not a bad one.
Once these are all done for the year, we're going to do a video of our ranking of all of them.
Yeah, we'll actually hold them up and display them. I think after they get them all done, it'll look cool having them all together like that.
That'd be sweet. Yeah. So, we just basically start off with some chill moments with John. He is helping a kid, they're growing crops and explaining what their duty is in the new sanctuary.
Yeah, and I like this. It was a really good character development by John because it really set John as... It set that character that we saw of John before at the gates of Alexandria. It kind of threw that out the door.
Yeah.
We have a character that realizes now that seeing these crops grow means that civilization is winning now, and that his group, the sanctuary, is flourishing.
Yep.
And furthermore, the trade between the sanctuary and Alexandria and Oceanside and the Hilltop, it's just everything is going great for them, and he realizes that they need that type of infrastructure.
Yeah, the kid was like, "We're gonna go shooting today," and he's like, "That's not important right now. We need to do this." And the kid's also like, "Well, we're getting all this food from Oceanside to Alexandria. How much do we need?" And that's where John goes into, "Look, we're trading for lumber. We're helping to rebuild. I don't think he says helping rebuild Alexandria, but we're helping to rebuild.
And furthermore, I don't think that they did help. They might.
Not sanctuary.
I mean, who knows, right? But we even get a reference, and we get a couple of references of Negan, but we get John referencing Negan during this whole, speech, communication, dialogue, basically saying, "Look, I mean, do you remember Negan's way and living under Negan's rule?"
And who's the guy? I almost thought that was Dwight for a second.
I did too, but it was another guy that he had given the iron.
It was the guy. I think it was the guy. I know Negan gave him... Was that the guy at the gates? At first, he was like, "We need to stick with Negan," and that's when John, I think he... Because when he mentions about nobody wants to go back to that, you get that shot.
He didn't burn that guy at Alexandria. He burned that guy back when he was still at the sanctuary.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because if he did that at the Alexandria, Rick probably would have been like, "Okay, Negan, I see you're going back to your old ways again."
Yeah. So we get another person comes up to John and says, "We have visitors," and what do you know? It's Rick, Governor Milton, and the crew have arrived for their first tour of their new community.
Yeah, and immediately John is like, "Who is she?"
Yeah.
and what's cool is like that's not the only reaction that we get.
No, there's many.
We'll get to that further, but
even the governor was like, "This doesn't look very inviting."
Yeah. And I think Rick says something like, "Well, it didn't used to be.
It took some time.
But it's changed a lot since even the last time I've been here."
Mm-hmm. And so Pamela, he's asking, "Well, what the heck's the Commonwealth?" And she's like, "Well, let me explain." So they kind of go in. We see a picture of Dwight there. He's kind of standing guard. But she kind of explains what the Commonwealth is and how, they have their, massive amount of people, which we still haven't seen, and how everybody chips in together. And she kind of brushes over how they do, in a sense, how they do
She mentions
things.
it
Yeah, she doesn't
a little bit.
She doesn't go into detail like you do what you used to do before in the old life. But John is basically all about, he's like, I'm he even says it to the kid.
I like the sound of that.
I like the sound of that, but I'm into making friends now, because he mentions to the kids before he was into, making enemies and killing. That was Negan's way. Now he's, with the communities coming together, he wants to make friends.
Yeah. So, and we get a little thank you from Rick to John actually saying, "Look, since you've taken over, things have been positive with the sanctuary." Yeah. So we really get a understanding that John he's really taken charge of the sanctuary and bringing it back to, not back to, but, really helping it out, right?
Yep, and so, Governor Milton says that she's seen enough and that she's ready to move on to the next stopping point. And she does ask Rick, "So who's about this Negan person you've mentioned?" And Rick's like, it's a long story. And she's like, well, we have quite a distance to travel. Let's talk about it. And I really wanted them to go into it, but they don't.
No, they completely,
I would have loved to have seen that conversation.
They completely gloss over that, and we basically get to the next scene, which is they're riding on horseback. What we find out later on the way to the hilltop. So she's making
to the kingdom first.
Yeah, sorry, kingdom.
Yeah.
But she's making her rounds to the different communities.
Yep.
But really cool dialogue between Dwight and Rick.
Yeah. So Dwight is kind of apologizing, saying, "Look, man, I'm really sorry. I did not mean to blame you for everything. I was going through a bunch of stuff." And Rick's kind of, at first Dwight was like, "Oh, you don't need to bring up old stuff, but I'm really sorry." And Dwight says, the girl Laura, who he's with now, he's like, "Laura's really helping me to bring, get myself back and kind of get in a forgiving mode because I was hateful for
kind
quite
of a
some time."
Conversation that we've been waiting for between Dwight and Rick for some time.
It's been needing to happen for quite some time. So it was a good little quick conversation. And they arrive at the kingdom.
Yeah.
And this is where Governor Milton is very surprised when they mention, they used to have a tiger here.
Yeah, meeting Richard.
And
yeah, it was it was really cool to get the reference of the tiger and King Ezekiel.
I love when he said, "You would have liked King Ezekiel."
Exactly.
I heard that. I was like, "Oh, Ezekiel, it's been so long."
I loved this. I mean, it was like almost like little glimpses into the past. And I loved how they sprinkled that in.
And she was like, "Was Ezekiel a tiger?" And he's like, "No, they had a tiger." And did he say she or it? Oh, he says they're both no longer with us. That's what he says. So that was like, oh, that's too bad. So, and she's very taken. She's like, the places are very colorful. It looks really great. And that's when Rick says there's just one more stop to go. We go to the hilltop. And she's like, "I love these unique names. It's very," she's like, "delightful." Yeah. She said it in like a classy way. So we get another cool part next.
Yeah, another real cool part. This time they're on their way to the hilltop, and Mercer and Rick are now having a conversation. And really what this is about is Mercer's interested about how Rick is doing things with the communities and asks him, "So do you assign people to certain tasks?" Much like the Commonwealth does with their people.
Yeah, and he's like, basically Rick's like basically the world before it doesn't matter. People, they volunteer, they do their tasks, we give ideas, we shoot ideas back and forth, but
they're happy.
And Mercer asked him, "What did you do before?" And Rick was like, "I was a police officer." So you're saying, and he says, "So you're saying if I go to the Commonwealth, all I'm going to be do is rounding up people who
and writing speeding tickets?"
And Mercer's like, "Yeah, something like that." And then we find out Mercer was in the army, in the Marines. But he said he didn't like that life.
He said he didn't like it, but he's enjoying life now because he gets action, and before he wasn't getting that action and saving lives. And it's kind of an interesting conversation because we get Mercer, who we know already has a problem with Governor Milton, just getting another side of how life could be for him.
Yeah. And the last thing before they end that conversation is Rick is basically saying, he says, they contribute, they help out, they do what needs to be done. And that always, whatever they did before, if somebody was a blacksmith, they feel like doing some blacksmith work, great. But if they feel like they help in other areas, they go do that. And you kind of see Mercer like, he's thinking, he's like, that sounds dope.
Yeah.
That sounds dope. So then they arrive at the hilltop, and Rick is absolutely gobsmacked because holy crap, they have rebuilt a lot faster than he thought. They thought it was going to take years.
And he's not the only one. Dwight is sitting right behind him saying, "This is amazing." Like, they are all amazed on how quick, they were able to rebuild the hilltop.
Yeah, and we get Maggie immediately, and Rick is like, "Oh my God, Maggie, this is amazing." And she says the whole community helped out. I think they referenced that the kingdom helped out as well.
The kingdom was a big player in that because they sent a lot of supplies and manpower to actually help.
Yeah, and she immediately asks, "Who the hell is this?"
Yeah, because Governor Milton is like, she comes right out of the gate and says to Maggie, "Rick tells me this place was burnt to the ground pretty much." And like Maggie, who has never met her before, and completely understand the reaction, right? She's like, who the hell is this talking to me?
And before we get into it, we get the reunion that we have been waiting to see. We see Carl and Rick, and they have a loving embrace, and
awesome panel.
Carl was just like, look, in a sense, I'm sorry I had to come here. I really wanted to help out. He's like, I was worried about you, because of what happened.
Yeah.
And you see, Rick make that face, and he's like, yeah, I know. Yeah. I was worried about me too.
And they actually do, they have a sidebar conversation where they go and sit at a table and talk. And what's interesting about this is we can kind of see that Rick may be starting to get over Andrea.
Yeah.
Not all the way, because he's never going to get over her. But when Carl starts talking about Andrea, Rick stops and says, well, until you said something, I hadn't really thought about her up until now. Yeah. And that's probably because he's so busy showing Governor Milton around and the whole Commonwealth thing. But it kind of shows that, look, he's starting possibly to get better.
And the biggest thing is Carl is very surprised that Rick is not walking with a cane anymore.
Yes.
So Rick
is
like, my leg, it's feeling better, or I'm just gotten used to the pain. I don't feel it anymore.
Not going to run any marathons anytime soon.
Exactly. But Carl's like, I'll still beat you. So that was really cool. So this is where we get into the conversation that Maggie has been wanting to know. So she is just basically like, what do you want to do here? You want to do trade? You want to, trade goods, or do you want your picture on every single wall in our places, like royalty or something?
Yeah, when she said that, I immediately thought of like a Saddam Hussein dictator with a picture on every single wall in the house.
And that's what
she's kind of right.
That's what she's kind of assuming. That's how she's getting this feeling of what Pamela is.
And Milton was pretty much like, I prefer the latter, which is
the first option.
Or the first option, sorry, the latter. I prefer the first option, which is developing trade routes and communication.
And the funny thing is, Maggie's like, look, she's kind of saying you're one of those people that smiles all the time. And Pamela's like, well, I don't see myself smiling all the time. And Maggie's putting it into perspective. No, a person who smiles all the time is when you're trying to gain someone's trust and you're smiling all the time.
And you're lying.
People aren't going to think you're telling the truth. They're going to think you're lying.
Yeah.
And Rook's like, hey, Maggie, we need to calm this down for a couple seconds. You're being rude. She's like, I'm being rude? Seriously?
In the end, Maggie pretty much says, look, I trust you, Rick. Right. I'm all on your side. Whatever you feel is best is best.
And one thing that freaked her out. Michonne. Yeah. So she's like, so Rick says, we've rebuilt this. Michonne is still at the Commonwealth, and she's like, they're a prisoner? And Pamela Milton's like, no, her daughter Elodie, who has been living with us for a couple years, reunited. She decided to stay there.
Yeah.
And so that's when Maggie's like, all right, Rick, if you're done with your smell test, if everything's cool, you're going to the Commonwealth to check it out, report back to us. If everything's fine, the Hilltop stands with you.
Which I told Jarell this in just having conversation about this issue, before we started recording. It was very quick that we didn't I guess know. She hinted at it a little bit when she was talking about Negan earlier. I didn't pick up on that. But we find out now that Rick is going to go to the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so they're going to be making their trek back to the Commonwealth so Rick can see for himself how everything is. And so they begin their trip, and he kind of has a quick little thing with Eugene. Eugene doesn't want to spoil anything for him.
Got a surprise
for him. Not sure what that
train.
Not sure what that would be. The train. So so they make their way, and Governor Milton asks Rick if he wants to get off the horse and come into the wagon, and Rick's like, hell yeah, I haven't ridden in a wagon. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
So the end of this is cool. So they're kind of just like, look, she asks about Carl, how he lost his eye, and he's like, he was shot.
So what's interesting about that quick little conversation is she mentions that the Commonwealth has been in some conflicts.
Not a lot, though, yeah.
Not a lot, but that they were able to quickly extinguish those conflicts without those pretty much coming to their front door, right?
And she says, but we never had to put children on the front lines.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm thinking, like, look, in Rick's group, if you're able to fight, you have to fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for 50,000 people to go and fight.
If they have 50,000.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she says we've always been able to keep it at a safe distance. And he's like, Rick's like, well, that's a luxury that's kind of escaped us for the longest time. And she's like, well, we're hoping that everything's cool. You know, everything will be better. And we're hoping to, excuse me, get you over to our way of thinking. And Rick's like, or maybe you over to ours. And she's like, you're going to be a little bit of trouble, aren't you? And he's like, well, hopefully not. So that's going to be the deciding factor of this is the Milton wants to get him over to their way of thinking. And Rick's like, Rick's not going to be down for that. Yeah. Because even Mercer is starting to change his way of thinking.
The key thing that she says here is that, yes, the distance will be an issue, but they think that Alexandria and all these communities will be a great settlement south of the Commonwealth. So pretty much what they're saying, or what she's trying to allude to here, is that, look, this is going to be a great expansion site for the Commonwealth.
Right.
So pretty much the Commonwealth taking over them. It's kind of like the British and the colonies.
Right.
You know, the Commonwealth is now going to consider Alexandria, Hilltop, Kingdom, Oceanside. They're going to consider them Commonwealth now.
Right.
Which you got to think that's going to bring the Commonwealth rules over.
Right. Yeah, who knows if they're going to start sending out troops and like other somewhat lieutenants that she has out to there and start changing their rules. Who knows? We still don't know if they have 50,000. We don't know yet. We'll find out.
You start thinking of like Prima Noctra type shit. Like, they're going to start having outposts built to govern these communities. Stuff like that is what I'm thinking. Right. And like,
it's going to be interesting. Yeah. We know in a couple issues of that cover, of course, these covers can throw us off, how it showed Michonne and Elodie running because of a fire in the Commonwealth. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But,
I don't think so. They're not going to build a community this big and just flush it like that.
Well, they get attacked by Whisperers Part 2. But a very great issue. Cover threw us off, but it was a really chill issue. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
I did too. Like, I agree. Very chill issue, but I really did enjoy it.
There's some answers that we need. There's some questions that we need answered.
And I always love Negan's being Negans. I always love Negan being mentioned in an issue.
Exactly.
We need some Negan.
We need some Negan back. So let us know your thoughts of The Walking Dead issue 182. Let us know if you have picked up the Maggie cover. And so stay tuned towards when they get done with these, towards the end of the year. We will do a ranking of those. But let us know your thoughts of The Walking Dead so far. We absolutely love it.
All right.
So follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thumbs up, like, subscribe. We are NocBro Nation. We're out.